My name is Dana, and I need to tell you about the craziest family situation I've ever been in. It all started with my younger sister, Chloe, who's apparently had some heart problems since she was 1 year old. I say apparently because, well, you'll see why later. Growing up, our house always revolved around Chloe. My parents treated her like she was made of glass or something. "Don't upset Chloe," my mom would say all the time. Any wrong word or action could cause her to have a heart attack. Honestly, that scared the hell out of me as a kid. I was always walking on eggshells, trying not to do anything that might hurt my sister. My parents gave Chloe everything she wanted. Every single thing. New toys, sure. Special food, of course. Get out of doing chores, absolutely. They homeschooled her because regular school was too stressful. She couldn't do sports, couldn't even play with other kids because it might worsen her condition. Meanwhile, I went to regular school, did all the household chores, and basically grew up like a normal kid. I graduated high school, then college, and got a decent job at a marketing firm. Chloe finished her homeschooling but never went to college. My parents told her she shouldn't work either. "Just stay home and relax," they'd say. So there she was, a grown woman just hanging out at home all day while I was out there adulting. Then I met Mike at work. He's in accounting, super smart, makes me laugh until my sides hurt. We hit it off immediately. After dating for about a year, he proposed, and I said yes. I was over the moon. Finally, something good was happening in my life. When I brought Mike home to meet my family, things got weird fast. Chloe was all over him. And I mean all over him. She was flirting like crazy, saying stuff like, "You have such beautiful eyes, Mike, and Dana's so lucky to have someone like you." She kept trying to touch his arm, sit too close to him, even followed him to the kitchen when he went to get water. Mike looked so uncomfortable. He kept trying to move away from her, but Chloe just kept following him around. She was acting like I wasn't even there. "Mom, can you please tell Chloe to back off?" I asked after Mike left. "Back off from what, honey? I didn't notice anything unusual," Mom said, not even looking up from her magazine. She was practically sitting in his lap. "Oh, Dana, don't be dramatic, Chloe's just bored. She doesn't get to meet many people. It's just an innocent little crush." "Innocent?" "Mom, she was feeling up my boyfriend." "You're being ridiculous," Dad chimed in, "Chloe's just being friendly." I couldn't believe it. Were they seriously not seeing this? Or were they choosing not to see it? The next few family dinners were the same. Chloe would dress up all nice, put on makeup, and basically ignore me while hanging all over Mike. She'd ask him about his work, compliment his clothes, even offer to cook for him. Mike started making excuses to skip dinners, and honestly, I didn't blame him. Things got even worse when we announced our engagement party. I was so excited to share the news with my family, but instead of congratulations, I got a phone call from my mom the next day. "Dana, sweetie, I have a huge request that you absolutely must fulfill," she said in this weird, urgent voice. "What's wrong, Mom? Is everything okay?" "You need to cancel your engagement party, immediately." I nearly dropped the phone. "What? Why would I do that?" "And you need to cancel your wedding too. Actually, you should just break up with Mike altogether, he's not suitable for you." "Mom, have you lost your mind? I'm not doing any of that. This is about Chloe, Dana. She's very upset that you're getting engaged to Mike. She's in love with him." I couldn't speak for a moment. "Mom, are you serious right now? Your father and I want Chloe to be happy. We're sure that once you break up with Mike, he'll start dating Chloe instead." "Mom, if you're serious, you've really lost it," I said and hung up. When I told Mike about the conversation, he was as shocked as I was. "They want you to break up with me so Chloe can date me? That's insane." "I know, right, but that's my family for you." After that phone call, I thought maybe my parents would drop it. Boy, was I wrong. The peace didn't last long. My parents went from begging to full-on blackmail mode. It started with endless texts from my mom, each one more dramatic than the last. She'd write things like, "Chloe's heart rate has been elevated all day because she's so stressed about your engagement, and we might have to take her to the emergency room if you don't reconsider." Then came the phone calls. My mom would call at all hours, crying into the phone about how I was destroying my sister's health. She'd tell me that Mike secretly loved Chloe, that he just couldn't admit it because of me, and that she'd seen him looking at Chloe with loving eyes whenever they met. I tried to reason with her. I explained that Chloe was a grown woman who needed to deal with rejection like everyone else. But my mom wouldn't hear it. She kept insisting that any day now, Chloe would have a heart attack because of all this stress I was causing. My dad wasn't much better. He'd text me articles about stress-induced heart problems, always with messages like, "Is your engagement really worth your sister's life?" The guilt tactics were getting worse every day. Mike and I decided to just go ahead with our engagement party as planned. We told my parents they were welcome to come, but they needed to respect our decision. The response was immediate. My mom sent a long text saying none of them would attend because they couldn't watch me destroy Chloe's health and happiness. A week before the engagement party, my phone rang early in the morning. It was my mom, sobbing hysterically. "Dana, Chloe's in the hospital, she had a heart attack." My blood ran cold. Despite everything, Chloe was still my sister. "What happened? Is she okay?" "This is all your fault. The stress from your engagement announcement sent her to the emergency room. You need to cancel everything right now." I drove to the hospital immediately, my hands shaking the entire way. When I got there, the doctors wouldn't let me see Chloe. They said she needed rest and shouldn't be disturbed by any visitors who might upset her. My parents had apparently told them I was the source of her stress. Standing outside the hospital, feeling helpless and confused, I realized I needed help. I called my Aunt Sarah, my mom's sister, who had always been more reasonable than my parents. When I explained everything to her, there was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Dana, there's something you need to know about Chloe's condition." "What do you mean?" "Your sister hasn't been sick for years. The doctors removed her diagnosis when she was about 14. I felt like the ground was shifting under my feet. "What are you talking about?" "She had a heart valve issue when she was little, but her heart grew and the valve started working properly. She didn't even need surgery. The doctors cleared her completely. But, my parents, they've been saying she could die any moment." "Your parents refused to accept that Chloe had recovered. They decided the doctors were wrong, that they knew better. They've kept treating her like she's still sick all these years." I sat down on a bench outside the hospital, trying to process this information. My aunt continued talking. "I've watched your family for years, Dana. Your parents and Chloe have this weird relationship where they can't let go of her being sick. Chloe likes being taken care of, and your parents like having someone who needs them. It's not healthy for any of them." After hanging up with my aunt, I made a decision. If Chloe wasn't actually sick, if this was all some elaborate manipulation, then I wasn't going to let it control my life anymore. My engagement party was happening, period. The party was perfect. Mike and I danced, laughed, and celebrated with the people who actually cared about us. My parents and Chloe didn't show up, which honestly made everything more relaxed. But the next day, my mom's pettiness reached new levels. She posted photos on Facebook of Chloe lying in a hospital bed, looking pale and exhausted. The caption read, "My poor daughter had another heart attack because her sister chose to be cruel and selfish. Dana doesn't care if Chloe lives or dies." I couldn't let that slide. I commented on the post, asking my mom to share Chloe's medical records in our family group chat so everyone could see the truth about her condition. I also mentioned that I'd learned some interesting information about her diagnosis that the whole family should know about. The comments section exploded. Relatives started asking questions, demanding answers. My Aunt Sarah backed me up, confirming what she'd told me about Chloe's recovery years ago. Within hours, my mom deleted the post. But the damage to her narrative was done. The whole family now knew the truth about Chloe's health, and many of them weren't happy about being lied to for years. I felt vindicated but also sad. My sister had spent her entire adult life pretending to be sick, and my parents had enabled it. What kind of family does that to each other? With the truth about Chloe's health now out in the open, I thought maybe my family would finally back off. Part of me even hoped they'd get some help. But instead of taking responsibility for their years of lies, my parents doubled down on their protective behavior toward Chloe. Mike and I started planning our wedding for 3 months out. We decided on a small ceremony with just close friends and the family members who actually supported us. I made the painful but necessary decision not to invite my parents or Chloe. To protect ourselves, we hired security guards for the venue, with specific instructions that under no circumstances should my parents or sister be allowed anywhere near the wedding. Everything seemed to be moving forward smoothly. Mike's family was helping with arrangements, my Aunt Sarah was being incredibly supportive, and for once, I wasn't constantly checking my phone for dramatic messages from my mother. We found a beautiful venue, picked out flowers, chose a menu, all the normal wedding stuff that felt impossibly exciting after so much family drama. But then, about a month before the wedding, something happened that made me realize the situation was far from over. I was coming home from meeting with our wedding photographer late one afternoon. I had parked about a block away from my apartment building and was walking the short distance home. The street was quiet, lined with parked cars and tall trees. I was lost in thought, probably thinking about centerpieces or invitation designs, when I heard a car engine revving behind me. My instincts kicked in. Something about the sound made me turn around. A car was speeding down the street, way too fast for a residential area. As it got closer, I realized it was heading straight for me. Without thinking, I jumped to the side, throwing myself onto someone's front lawn. The car roared past, missing me by maybe 2 feet. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. As the car sped away, I caught a glimpse of the license plate and the driver. Even with the speed and my shaky state, I recognized Chloe's car. And the person behind the wheel definitely looked like my sister. I sat on that stranger's lawn for a few minutes, trying to process what had just happened. Had Chloe really just tried to run me over? It seemed impossible, but the evidence was right there. I was bruised from my dive to the ground, my hands scratched up from landing on the grass. This wasn't my imagination. The next morning, still shaken, I talked to my landlord about getting security footage from outside the building. He was initially hesitant, but when I explained that someone had tried to hit me with their car, he agreed to let me see the recordings. The footage was crystal clear. Chloe's license plate was visible, and you could see her face through the windshield as she aimed the car at me. The timestamp showed it was exactly when I remembered. There was no doubt anymore, my sister had actually tried to hurt me. With the video evidence in hand, I went to the police station. Filing a report felt surreal. I'd never imagined having to involve law enforcement with family matters, but attempted vehicular assault, that's what the officer called it, wasn't exactly a family squabble anymore. Within a few hours of filing the report, my phone rang. It was my mother, and she was screaming before I even said hello. "How could you call the police on your sister? She's sick, Dana, this stress could kill her." The irony wasn't lost on me. Here was my mother, still pushing the sick narrative, even though the whole family now knew the truth. "Maybe if you had gotten her real help instead of enabling her for years, we wouldn't be in this situation," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "The police came to our house, Chloe's having a breakdown. You're going to kill her with this." I took a deep breath, part of me wanted to hang up, but another part wanted to end this madness once and for all. "I'll withdraw the police complaint," I said finally, "but only if you and Dad make sure Chloe gets professional help and stops harassing Mike and me. This is your last chance to handle this as a family." There was a long pause. Finally, my mother's voice came through, quieter now. "We'll talk to her, we'll make sure she leaves you alone. You have 3 days, if I see or hear from Chloe in any way, the police report stays active." I hung up, feeling exhausted. True to my word, I went back to the police station and withdrew the complaint, explaining that it was a family matter that was being resolved. The officer seemed skeptical but accepted my decision. For the next few days, there was complete silence from my family. No texts, no calls, no social media posts. It was almost eerie after months of constant drama. I allowed myself to hope that maybe, finally, they were taking this seriously. A week later, my mom called. This time, her voice was different, maybe more honest than I'd heard in years. "Your father and I found a therapist who specializes in family dynamics," she said. "We've convinced Chloe to start seeing her for individual sessions, and we're going to do some family therapy too." I didn't know what to say. This was more than I'd expected. "We're also looking into support groups for codependent relationships," she continued. "Your Aunt Sarah recommended one." It felt strange to have a normal conversation with my mother after everything that had happened. Part of me wanted to be skeptical, to wait and see if this was just another manipulation tactic. But part of me wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, my family could start to heal. As my wedding day approached, I found myself cautiously optimistic. The security guards were still hired. I wasn't naive, but the constant anxiety about what my family might do next had lessened. Mike and I finished our wedding preparations surrounded by people who genuinely loved and supported us. 3 weeks before the wedding, we made another big decision. Mike had been offered a position with his company in another state, and he wanted to take it. The timing couldn't have been better. A fresh start, away from all this family drama, sounded like exactly what we needed. I gave my notice at work, and we started making arrangements for the move. Only my Aunt Sarah and a couple of close relatives knew our future address, and they promised to keep it confidential. It felt like we were planning a secret escape, but also like we were finally taking control of our own lives. The wedding day dawned bright and clear. Everything was perfect, the venue looked beautiful, our friends and supportive family members were there, and most importantly, neither my parents nor Chloe showed up. The security guards we'd hired had nothing to do except enjoy the open bar. As I danced with Mike during our first dance as husband and wife, I felt a mix of emotions. Joy, obviously, but also sadness for the family relationships I'd lost, and relief that this chapter of my life was ending. Looking at our guests, seeing the faces of people who genuinely cared about our happiness, I knew we'd made the right choice. After the reception, as we were getting ready to leave for our honeymoon, my Aunt Sarah hugged me tight. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. "You did what you had to do to protect yourself and Mike." 2 days later, we were on a plane to our honeymoon destination, and 2 weeks after that, we were moving to our new home in another state. As the moving truck pulled away from my old apartment, I felt like I was literally leaving the past behind. Life in our new state felt like breathing fresh air after being underwater for years. Mike and I settled into our new routines, exploring our neighborhood, making new friends at work, and for the first time in forever, not looking over our shoulders constantly. The move had been the best decision we'd ever made. Our new apartment was in a quiet suburban area, completely different from where we'd lived before. We had a little garden, friendly neighbors, and most importantly, the beautiful silence of no family drama. Every morning, I'd wake up and check my phone almost instinctively, but there were no missed calls, no threatening texts, no manipulation tactics waiting for me. 3 months after the move, I found out I was pregnant. Mike and I were over the moon. We spent hours talking about baby names, painting the nursery, and dreaming about our future. For the first time, I could imagine bringing a child into the world without worrying about toxic family members trying to control or manipulate them. I kept in touch with my Aunt Sarah through regular phone calls and video chats. She was the only family member who knew our exact address, and she'd promised to keep it that way. During one of our calls, she gave me an update about my parents and Chloe. "Your mom called me last week," she said. "They're still in therapy, both individual and family sessions. The psychologist they're seeing has helped them recognize some of their unhealthy patterns." "How's Chloe doing?" I asked, surprised to find myself genuinely curious. "She's actually doing better." The therapist helped her understand that playing sick has been a way to feel special and loved, but it's also kept her from growing up and becoming independent. Sarah went on to explain that Chloe had started taking community college courses online, something my parents had never allowed her to do before. She was also learning to do household chores, cook her own meals, and even considering getting a part-time job. The therapist told your parents they need to treat Chloe like an adult with her own life, not a perpetual patient, Sarah continued. It's been hard for them, but they're trying. My parents had also joined a support group for parents of adult children who struggle with codependency. They were learning to let go, to stop using Chloe's illness as an excuse to control her life, and to respect her autonomy. Have they asked about me? I couldn't help wondering. Your mom asks every time we talk, but I tell her you need space and time to heal. She seems to understand, though I think she's sad about missing your pregnancy. I felt a complex mix of emotions, relief that they were getting help, sadness about the fractured relationships, and uncertainty about whether things could ever be normal again. As my pregnancy progressed, I thought more about family. Not the toxic version I'd grown up with, but the healthy family I wanted to create for my child. Mike and I talked a lot about setting boundaries, teaching independence, and making sure our kid never felt like they had to sacrifice their own happiness for someone else's emotional needs. When I was about 6 months pregnant, Sarah called with more news. Chloe asked me to tell you something, she said carefully. She's written you a letter. She wanted to mail it, but she didn't have your address. Would you be okay with reading it? I hesitated. Part of me wanted to keep the distance, but another part was curious. Can you tell me what it says first? She apologizes, really apologizes. She admits that she was obsessed with Mike, that she tried to manipulate situations to get attention, and that trying to run you over was the worst thing she's ever done. She says she's in therapy working on understanding why she did those things. I asked Sarah to read the letter to me over the phone. As she did, I found myself crying. It wasn't the manipulative, guilt-inducing language I was used to from my family. This sounded genuine, like someone who had actually done the work to understand their problems. She also says she hopes to meet her niece or nephew someday, but only when and if you're ready, Sarah finished. She's not asking for anything, Dana. Just wanted you to know she's sorry. I spent weeks thinking about that letter. Mike and I talked it over countless times. We decided that maybe, someday, when our child was older and we felt more secure in our own family unit, we might consider limited contact with my parents and Chloe. But not now, not while everything was still so fresh. When our daughter Emma was born, it was the most beautiful experience of my life. Holding her, I felt this fierce protective instinct. I would never let anyone manipulate her or make her feel responsible for another person's happiness. She would grow up knowing she was loved for who she was, not what she could do for others. We sent birth announcements to a select few people, including Sarah, who promised to share the news appropriately with our extended family. A week later, we received a package. Inside was a beautiful handmade baby blanket with a note that simply said, "For Emma, with love from Grandma." No demands, no guilt trips, just a simple gift. Mike and I decided to send a brief thank you note through Sarah, acknowledging the gift but maintaining our boundaries. It felt like a small step, but one we were comfortable with. As I write this, Emma is 3 months old, and our life in our new state continues to be peaceful. Mike loves his new job, I'm on maternity leave and loving every minute with our baby, and most days, the drama from my old life feels like a distant memory. Do I think my family will ever be normal? I honestly don't know. Changing patterns that took decades to establish isn't easy, especially when it's tied up with fear, control, and genuine misguided love. But the fact that they're in therapy, that Chloe is taking steps toward independence, that my parents are finally acknowledging their codependent behavior, that gives me hope. Will I ever have a close relationship with them again? Maybe not the way some families do, but perhaps we can find a new kind of normal, one with healthy boundaries and mutual respect. For now, I'm focused on my own little family. Mike, Emma, and I have created something beautiful together, something based on genuine love, not manipulation or obligation. Emma will grow up knowing her worth isn't measured by how much she can sacrifice for others. She'll learn that love doesn't come with strings attached. Sometimes I look at Emma sleeping peacefully in her crib, and I feel grateful for everything that happened, even the painful parts. It taught me what I don't want to repeat, what boundaries I need to set, and how important it is to choose emotional health over family loyalty when they're in conflict.